All right, we are live. So I try not to hype these up too much prior to, but I did send out some notes on Facebook, on LinkedIn, might have been a tweet or two saying how pumped up I am to have you on the podcast after all these years, sir.
It's been a while.
It has been a while. I think I described you as a legend in the Maryland tech community. I don't think that's I think that might be even an understatement. I think pioneer in security in distributed technologies, cloud technologies. I don't think that's an understatement. Yeah, I'm pumped. And I was gonna say, and along the way, you've been pretty damn good to me. So I appreciate that.
Thanks. Yeah, it's always good to catch up. It's been a while, and yeah, I don't know. I got a little bit of gray hair brewing, so maybe pioneer's a little better. But
pioneer, okay, fine, pioneer. I'll go with that one. Yeah, we're all getting the gray hair, so I'm trying to fight it. But anyway, I digress. All right, so I didn't want to start, on a somber's not the right word, but just kind of throw it out there, man. You were involved in a horrific accident. Was it? I guess about a year ago now, right?
yes, it'll be a year next week or in 2 weeks. Yeah, so I was riding my race bicycle because I have race bikes, and going on a training ride, and some car cut in front of me, and I slammed headfirst into it at like almost 25 miles an hour. So choppered out to the trauma center, and it's been a long year, but get to an opportunity to let your mind refocus on just what's good and what to do, how to go through life. So
that's one hell of a positive attitude about it, man. Because I remember I think I'd just gotten back from it's one of those things where you remember where you were when you get the text. We were just on the way, just got back from my son's hockey tournament in Pittsburgh, of all places, and I got the text from Tracy saying, FYI, Michael's in shock trauma in Delaware. It's like one of those hit you, square in the face kind of moments. And then, been texting back and forth and, trying to connect or what have you. And your humor about the number of surgeries that you've had to go through is incredible, man. Like seriously, it's incredible. So
I think I've had 3 so far. Probably had 3 more on the way. So basically, it's got to get some teeth put in, and I think it'll be good.
Yeah. All right. Well, on that note, like I'm glad to be able to do this with you. I'll just leave it at that. Yeah. So I met you. I was trying to calculate this again, like I don't know, almost 15 years ago, something like that. It's got to be in that range.
20. Back in 2004.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? Yeah, you're absolutely right. 2004.
With the Tech Council.
Early days. I guess we were at that point still the Anne Arundel Technology Council. I don't know if we'd become CRTC at that point, right?
They were making the rebranding when I came on board and when we met. Yes.
That's right. Yeah, and here comes this young guy trying to, thinks he knows everything about technology, and you put me in. Yourself and Mark Powell put me in my place a couple of times, which is great. But no, honestly, you guys from just a mentorship standpoint and friendship standpoint, I can't thank you guys enough, obviously, for that. But even back then, you knew that you guys were doing some really, really cool stuff, really, really, really innovative stuff. And I know even back then you had some of the big guys, chasing your tail, trying to figure out what you're doing, which was pretty cool. I remember having some of those conversations, and these, I won't name the names, but these big companies coming after you and, trying to peek under the hood and trying to, probably reverse engineer also all the amazing stuff you were working on even back then. But let's kind of get into like where Southern River Tech is today, because you talk about security, you talk about managed file access, you talk about security in the cloud, compliance. I mean, you kind of had this really interesting journey of building this technology, and it's like, I think it's starting to crescendo at a time where everything's starting to line up. right? It's compliance, it's security, it's distributed workforce, it's remote access, all these things that just each one of them had taken a while to mature and get to the point to where they are now. But you guys are squarely in the slipstream with this. So can I take us through maybe some of the origin of South River and technology, and then let's kind of bring it to today.
Sure. So we started basically. My business partner and I were two separate companies back in the late '90s, just selling commercial off-the-shelf software. So you download it from the internet and use it and pay us $25, and you get to keep it. And the idea was that it facilitated the transfer of files over the internet. So it was just a smart FTP server or an FTP client. And we hooked up with some people out in LA through the .com phase to have an online storage service. So the idea would be that you would store all your files online for $5 a gigabyte or whatever, and you could have a little drive letter, a little X drive on your desktop. So that's what our company created. Was we invented the concept of having a drive letter on your desktop. So all the Dropbox and the Google Drives and the OneDrives, that's all technology that was based on something that we brought to market back in the late '90s. So after the whole .com thing went under, we realized, hey, we could sell this to businesses. There's a lot of companies out there that are going to start having people with laptops that are traveling outside the security perimeter of their company, and they're still going to need the same employee experience if they're in a Starbucks or if they're back inside the headquarters. And our software facilitates that. So our server software provides a secure endpoint for the remote workers to come in, and they can access their files and transfer and do the work that they can do on-prem. Now they can do it off-prem. And it wasn't really super sexy. It was sort of like meat and potatoes type of solutions that we were providing to businesses. It's like you don't really know you need it until you need it. And then you're like, oh, okay, well, this makes total sense. So we built a steady portfolio of customers throughout the last 20 years. I think we're in 170 countries with about 20,000 customers. And then once COVID hit, it just exploded because people were forced to go home, and companies were left in this position of I can either set up a VPN and all the firewall infrastructure, or I can shift some of my infrastructure out to the cloud and then provide these remote desktop clients to all my home-based employees. And now I've got a virtual network that I can run my company. And now it's just part of the infrastructure that businesses are using no matter where they are. They're having people that are coming back into the workforce and working on site, but there's also a segment that want to stay home and work remotely. So the businesses need to make sure that they can provide a secure presence and access points for these remote workers. So I'd say we've been sort of prototyping for the last 20 years, and now we've got this really mature technology that's been vetted on millions of desktops and thousands of servers around the world. And we're like, okay, we're in a really great position now. So let's go out and make some noise and tell a story.
It's amazing that after you get the millions of desktops, then you decide to go out and make some noise and kind of did it backward, but I think well done. But you think about the magnitude, it just the order of magnitude, number of just endpoints, users that you touch and reach. I mean, I think it's one of those. It's remarkable that here's this amazing Maryland startup, beyond obviously startup these days, been around for quite a while, but impact with 170 countries, 20,000 plus customers, millions of users or endpoints. I mean, that's no small feat. I don't care if you're been in business for 2 years or 20 years or what have you. It's not easy to accomplish.
It took a long time, and I think one of the reasons we were successful is that it wasn't all at once. Being my business partner and I are both technical people. We're programmers by trade, so we've had this ability to fine tune it as it's going down the road to adopt new operating systems and new browsers and new technologies as they come on board. And we've been patient and we've been able to fix little things as they come along, as opposed to if you have a startup and you have all these guys or all these people that are in the kitchen trying to make the soup. It's a lot harder to get it right the first time out. And we've just been cooking it, letting it simmer as you would for a long time. So it's benefited us to do this gradually, and it's led to a much higher quality product and solution. And we find that when customers come on board, they stick with us for a very long time. We've had customers that have been here for 20 years, and they just continuously renew their maintenance and support, go out a few boxes because they're onboarding a new company or they've acquired a company. And it really makes us feel good that we have people that'll email us or contact us and like, oh my gosh, you guys have been here for 20 years. Thanks.
Oh, wow, that's impressive. So, for the kind of understanding the entrepreneurial journey and kind of building a business over 20 years, I don't know, what were some of the highlights? And what were some of the low points? It's got to be, it's got to be some pretty wild swings over a 20-year period and getting to where you are now.
It is definitely one of the high points was right at the beginning when you're just selling. It was before credit card transactions were on the internet, so people would send a check to a post office box, and I'd go get a check, and I'd take 50 checks for $25 to the bank and put them in with one of those slips. And then to have some big venture capitalist from Silicon Valley call you up and say, "Hey, I want you to come out here and Santa Monica and work for us," and everybody's going to be driving Porsches, and so that was really exciting to see the energy of Silicon Valley and the hype of the .com stuff, and then to see how that can be migrated over to become a business solution where you can actually generate revenue and start a company and build a solid foundation. That was really exciting to know that we could take it from the shareware and .com hype to a legitimate revenue stream. And then I think probably in the late, was it 2006, maybe 2008, it was a really bad recession, and the economy took a really harsh downturn, and that was really hard to digest because we've been growing all the time. And then get to a point where you had to sort of trim back your expenses and you had to focus your marketing messages more. We'd never had to really put that much energy into planning and designing a revenue stream and sort of our projections. But fortunately, we had a pretty equal division of our customer base. So we had maybe 45 or 50% were domestic, and the other half were international. And a lot of our business goes through channels and distributors. So while we did take a hit during the recession, we were able to change priorities and shift a little bit of energies around so that we could leverage our global customer base and still be profitable and grow. So that was that's sort of the reality portion of it. You have all these really great years, and one year we're like, wow, okay, business doesn't go so well every year.
Yeah.
But now we're settled in. We've got a really good team here. We've got a global system of distributors, of service providers, and channels that sell our software, and we support them. And we've got a good balance of direct customers versus partners that we're able to work with. So we're in a really good spot right now. We're really excited.
Yeah. So when you said you're going to go through those hard times, and you said fortunately, that you had channels, I thought you were going to say fortunately you had Tracy there to help pivot the messaging and just lift you guys up and take you in these different directions. And so so for those who don't know, yeah, Tracy, your other half, I'll say better half, has obviously been pretty instrumental in the business, and certainly those early days, and taking the marketing lift and taking it to new heights for sure.
Yeah, that's true. So when we started, when we formed South River Technologies in 2001, actually September 2001. So it was my business partner John Glavin and I, and Tracy, my wife. So Tracy was going to do all the sales and marketing and focus on everything that generates revenue within the company. And then John and I would focus on the back end of running a company and building the software. And so it's been that way since 2001. And then this year, Tracy retired. So she's the first official retiree from South River Technology. So now we have to switch a little bit. We're like, wow, we got to hire more people and different trains of thought. So,
oh, wow. Well, very good. Congrats to her. That's awesome.
Yeah. I think she's on the beach having breakfast or something.
Oh, as she should. As she should. So going back to, circling around back to technology, to mention, we all know that, especially the compliance word been thrown around probably since that 2006, 2007 timeframe, some early days of some of the government compliance frameworks. And, you got, you had HIPAA and SOC and, or SOX and all that stuff. How much does compliance play into the, customers that come to you guys? Because imagine, again, having that, the time that you've had, the runway you guys have had, and having to think about security and compliance and these, different elements of compliance. How much does that play into the customers that are coming to you and getting set up?
It plays a lot. The customer regulation, the customer's requirements and regulations play in a lot on the front end, because they'll come to us with a checklist of absolutes. Like, we have to do this, we have to be SOX, we have to be 401 or 140, strong encryption. So it's a hard line set where they can't implement a solution unless it's been vetted through certain hurdles. And that's one of the things that we've been fortunate enough to do over the last 20 or so years, is that we make sure that all the security systems that we put in are highly vetted and are tested, and we make sure that we don't put any backdoors in things. So it's a curse and a blessing, because customers will come to us and they'll say, well, I've lost my credentials, or I need to get into my system. We're like, you can't. There's no backdoor. You have to reset it and start from scratch. And it's for security reasons. And then a lot of that comes from, when I first started out, I worked at a bank in the financial division, and then I left there and I worked at an encryption company. So we were building security systems that were encrypting bank transactions throughout the EU in the late 90s. And so things like that, you can't compromise on. It has to be done 150%. It's always got to work, and you have to make sure that it's really hard to get into, even for the people that program it. And we've been fortunate enough to build our systems to that standard. So when customers come in and say, we need this for processing credit card transactions, so it needs to be encrypted in transport, it needs to be encrypted at rest, and it needs to be encrypted in memory as it flows through the computer. Well, we do all that. We're like, there's a bad guy out there somewhere that's going to find a way into your system, and we have to make sure that even if they're in your system, they can't get to your data. So we try really hard to build systems that are point-to-point secure. And when customers deploy it, run a proof of concept, and they stay for a long time, they'll just wire it into their infrastructure. And like, okay, this works for us. We're going to continue to apply the hot fixes and the patches and updates, and we'll keep going with it.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you have customers that have been around for almost 20 years is pretty it's pretty remarkable. It really is. And I think one of the other things, again, having watched this, evolve, grow over the years, is that, obviously I'm familiar with some of the legacy technologies and platforms out there. But they seem to be just that. They seem to be kind of stuck in, not late 90s, but they're probably still stuck in that 2007, 2009 kind of time frame from an architecture standpoint, and even crazy things like latency. It's surprising as you look at some of these solutions or what have you. But I guess talk to me about kind of how you guys have architected this, because you've gone from early days of kind of on-prem. You kind of have this kind of both sides of the spectrum covered. But talk to me about the technology and kind of how that was built or architected, more modern, I guess, with more modern, challenges in mind.
Sure. So when we first started out, John and I we were C++ programmers that just ran, and we used Windows all the time. So those were types of solutions that we would build, and that was the development platform of choice for the late '90s and even into the early 2000s. So a lot of the solutions that we have now that are mature and they're deployed within an infrastructure environment are these mature technologies that are written on what's now considered really old technology. It was really cool when 20 years ago, in my 30s or so, but now it's not as robust, it's not as forward thinking, and there's less energy being devoted to the exploration of what you could do with this old technologies. So what we're finding now is that there's a whole new suite of development tools out there built on .NET and open source that allow solution providers to deploy their infrastructure to any platform. It could be on a Windows or a Linux box. It could be scaled to the cloud or hybrid, and that requires a bunch of different technologies. So what we've done over the last 5 or 6 years is, since John and I were the original programmers, we've basically rewritten our entire solution that's set for the next 20 years of deployment. So it's all built on this new suite of technologies of open source, community contribution, .NET deployment to the cloud or Linux. And now we're in a position so that as the AI engines develop, it's much more easy to integrate those technologies into our platforms for our customers. The old legacy or the mature technologies that are out there are going to have a very difficult time keeping up with the pace of innovation, both from a development platform and also from the aspect of where do I find programmers that are coming out of school that want to work on this really old stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you want to work on COBOL or Fortran? Um, this isn't your grandfather's technology platform anymore. So it's really important that the solution providers that are out there today um, have the ability to move as fast as innovation, and that we can pull in new technologies and advance our platforms.
Yeah. So maybe switch it up a little bit. Going back to your activities outside of, when you're not sitting in that chair programming or sitting at that chair running your business. One thing I always enjoyed is the periodic check-ins from whether it's Kona to, I don't even know where. It's like for a while it was like, where the hell in the world is Michael going to pop up? And what is he like accomplishing this week or whatever? Biking or racing in France all over the place. But how much of that honestly is really helped you, I guess, be a CEO? I don't know the best way to ask that question, but like, how much of that, maybe it's the struggle of all of the endurance sports that you do. How much is it played into you being a CEO and dealing, got to think about all these things you do. You're doing those, everything in not in like short bursts, right? You're doing Ironmans and then you're building companies over 20 years, right? I mean, there's got to be a theme there or something, but I don't know. I don't know what I'm asking.
I definitely like to, when I'm not in front of the computer, I do like to go out and going on long bike rides or running marathons. It really allows you to clear your head, because you need to focus on a completely different aspect of what's going on. It's much more physical as opposed to mental when you're sitting down trying to figure out an encryption algorithm or something. But it also teaches you that no matter how bad you want to give up, if you just keep persisting, eventually there's an end. And you just have to know that you do have the ability to get there. You may not think you do, but if you keep plugging along, eventually you'll get there. So I think it's doing something that really tests your physical limits and your endurance as a human really gives you confidence when you go into the business world, or when you try and tackle something like starting a company or going down a long-term journey like that. So I think it helps a lot. And I know I was doing triathlon for maybe 10 or 12 years, and you meet a lot of like-minded people. You meet a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of business people who just have that type A personality where they want to go out and they want to accomplish something, and they've got a better idea of how to do something. And so you're surrounded by a lot of similar-minded people.
Do you, do you purposely try to check out and not think about business and problems, or does it give you an opportunity to think through, how you would solve a problem? Do you have you ever had those like aha moments where you're like, all right, if I drop the line down this way and then put that syntax over here, voila.
Sometimes it does. So when I usually get up really early in the morning, and the first thing I'll do is I'll go hit the gym for an hour or so, and then I jump in the pool, um, and I'll swim for an hour, and sometimes 2 hours. So just going back and forth in a swimming pool for an hour, looking at a line, that's where I do a lot of thinking. It's just so boring. So you get to, okay, what am I going to do with my day, or how am I going to plan this out, or how can I fix this? But when I get out on other aspects of like running or cycling, you really need to pay attention to your environment. You don't want to trip on something, or you have to make sure that you fuel up and take a lot of food. So it's a different kind of mindset when you're sort of out in the environment. So for that aspect, it's nice to completely unplug from work and just focus on the task at hand. Like, oh my gosh, I got another 20 miles to run. How do I do this?
I was going to ask, do you decide halfway through an hour swim that you're going to go another hour? How do you decide between 1 and 2 hour swims?
I work out I have different days where I would do different lengths of workouts, and it's all built so that you increase your endurance up to some event. So some days are shorter, and then some days you're gonna. It's like today is a 2 hour day, and oh my gosh, it's gonna be horrible, but you got to go get it done. And that's where your brain tells you it's not a matter of if you can get this done, you will get it done, no matter how bad it hurts.
Yeah. Is there one of the triathlons or one of the events, Ironmans, that stand out? The one that's like, this is it. This is, I don't know if the pinnacle, but this is the one that you had mentally had to overcome or had to accomplish.
So I had two. I was in Tulsa, Oklahoma one time doing a full Ironman, which is 140.6 miles. And I just got done riding 112 miles on the bike, and I was about 6 miles into the run, and my body just completely shut down. I completely cracked. I had no energy. So I sat there and for about a half hour and put some fuel back in my body, but I was like, I still have 20 miles to go to the finish line. It wasn't a matter of whether I was going to quit, but I've got 20 miles to walk. So that one took a really long time, and that was eye-opening to if you how bad it could get if you don't train properly. But that all led up to, in 2022, I qualified and went to the World Championship in Hawaii. So Kona is what everybody calls it. So to get to Kona as a triathlete is you can't go any higher than that. That's just the pinnacle of the sport. So I was fortunate enough to qualify and went out there, and it was just
Yeah, that was
cool.
Yeah, well, it looked cool. I remember the play-by-play. I was getting the updates, and it looked pretty damn cool. All right, so circling back, kind of looking forward, right? You've got this, you have 20 years to perfect this technology, right? 20 years, others have kind of tried to come in and duplicate what you've done. Some have done it moderately well, most have failed, but you've been trailblazing. You've architected this so it's resilient and ready for the next 20 years. But what does the next handful of layers look like specifically for South River, and then certainly for like the partners, because you have such a large partner community? What's that look like for you guys upcoming?
Sure. We're really excited about the next few years. We've built this platform now that can be deployed on premises or out in the cloud. And it's built as a series of microservices, which we're targeting to service providers and people who want to white label what we do and offer it to a different suite of customers. We've proven this. When we took our company virtual about 5 years ago, we were trying to find a service provider that could take us virtual, put in a virtual network that would give us a little drive letter on our desktop and give a on-premise experience in the cloud, and could handle, like, we moved 14 terabytes of data to the cloud. We tried Microsoft and Google, and they couldn't handle that volume of data. So we were like, okay, we've got this great platform of microservices that we can team with partners and help them add value to what they bring to their customer base. So when their customer base comes in and says, I now have 14 employees or 140 employees that want to work remotely, how do I do that? How do I add a plug-in or extend my services so that I can keep those customers happy? So we're really excited about that and the ability for us to take our on-premises customers, move into the cloud, and pull in some MSPs and some partners to help them be successful. And then to spin off and start another series of security-related microservices that we'll be offering in the cloud to help people monitor their network and do penetration analysis, firewalls and proxies. A lot of AI stuff is coming around the corner. So there's all these really cool technologies that we're able to be plugging in to what we've built so far. So it's going to be a really exciting next couple of years.
Yeah. I mean, look, I that's probably what I'm most excited about it, kind of seeing the journey is that you guys have this essentially a platform to be able to build these things on, and be proactive in these areas, right? Rather than, a lot of the reactive scenarios. And it so amazes me that obviously the most well-funded companies in the world, right? Microsoft and Google specifically, it's still so damn clunky, right? The experience and the, don't even get me started on the support. But it's amazing that they've botched it this bad. And so, all right, I'll reserve my biases and my comments.
So we've talked over the years, we've talked to all the big 800-pound gorillas out there that are now put a desktop drive for your users. And the one 800-pound gorilla kept coming back to us, and they would release new versions, and it would be so horrible. And I went to the guy one time and I said, let's work together. This is a really cool technology to be able to have storage in the cloud and have people using desktop software, a little drive letter. And the guy's like, I've got 50 programmers downstairs working on this right now. And we're going to get it right this time. You gotta be kidding me. We've been calling you guys for 5-6 years. Yeah, let's work together. But I guess it's just a different mindset with a lot of companies.
No doubt.
How would they say? Imitation is the highest form of flattery.
That's it.
So
that's it. That's it.
Well, it helps validate our business model, and it helps reinforce the path that we're going down is a good solid. We have a good value prop, a solid path. So.
Absolutely. Well, we'll make sure that we put all the relevant links in the show notes and say not bad for a fella from a skateboarder from Dundalk. What you've done is truly impressive, and like your obviously the journey you've been through and certainly the challenge you've been through the last year in particular have been nothing but inspirational to watch you to bounce back and the positivity. So I appreciate that and appreciate being a good friend, and just glad to have you on. And everybody just get out there and check out South River Technologies, because it's they were the trailblazers in this industry, and they're doing some great things. So
well, thank you, Kevin.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And I guess we'll see y'all in the next episode of the Channel CEO, and I'll see you out there. Thanks, Michael.
Thanks.